Fox and Friends weekend. They had Trump yesterday. We're going to take a look at this. I don't know how much I can stomach. We'll see what we get.
Again, if we're being honest, interviewing Donald Trump is wrestling a bear. He will go where he wants to go. I think there's one point in this interview,
dude, what are these guys talking about?
How many cars are parked in Afghanistan? I mean, he goes
wrestling a bear
through the course of an hour.
That's one way of putting it.
He does come back. He does come back to the original question.
Yeah, an hour later.
I don't think he filibusters.
Dude.
In the way
this is funny. He's got,
he just indulges.
Dude, he's got like an intro disclaimer of like,
coming back to the original question.
Yeah, it's so brilliant. He just can't be bothered to talk about one topic or say answer a question
after his conviction in New York City.
Conviction! Let's go! Let's go.
Here is Donald Trump.
All right, here we go.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. This is your first interview since the verdict. It's been 48 hours. Where's your head at?
Well, look, you know, I'm fighting for the Constitution. I'm fighting for the same thing that you three. I watch you all the time, and same thing that you do. You fight for freedom. You fight for your country. These people are sick. They're sick. They're deranged. You know, I talk about the enemy on the outside and the enemy from within. So you have Russia, you have China. But if you have a smart president, you always handle him quite easily, actually. We have a lot of advantages. But the enemy from within, they are doing damage to this country.
Dude, that is a crazy way to start. He goes right into the enemy within. That's wild. It's a weird thing to be campaigning on. The GOP message is Russia and China, the people we've been complaining about for the last 50 years, are not the enemies, but it's our own citizens.
The enemy from within, they are doing damage to this country. They want open borders. They want high interest rates.
Nobody wants open borders.
To quadruple your taxes.
Nobody's quadrupling taxes.
You know, all my life I watched politics, and it was always like politicians want to lower taxes, not quadruple them. There's a whole sickness going on right now. So we're doing really well. It's very interesting. Jury came in. It was a tough venue. We tried to get out of the venue. We tried to get out of the judge. But we tried to get out of both, wouldn't even think about it.
And you got convicted.
Probably maybe the worst area in the whole country for me, you know, in terms of vote. I'm sure if I sat down and...
What do you mean the worst area, dude? Last week, every right-wing influencer on the planet was saying Trump was winning New York. You remember those tweets?
Explained it to that section.
They need to make up their mind.
Make progress. But one of the worst sections. And they always bring them in these sections.
Although, to be fair, everyone in New York has hated Trump for, 50 years. Nobody's ever liked him there.
Virtually no votes. But the good news is that I think we've set a record beyond all records for fundraising. That's like a poll. And another one just came out just before I got in that we're 6 points higher than we were before. So I don't know if that holds up. I mean, I'm just not sure. But people get it. It's a scam.
Dude, he is severely underwater with independent voters, like severely. It's going to be really interesting to watch how this plays out, because one of the things I've noticed so far is that a huge portion of the Republican campaign right now, it feels like a propaganda machine. It's, snippet pieces of content. He walks outside a Trump Tower and just waves, and then they add some crowd cheering, and then those videos get disseminated to Benny Johnson, Matt Walsh, Libs of TikTok, DC Drano, the End Wokeness guy, all these weird, racist, right-wing influencers. They've been on a constant campaign of, look how much money we've raised. Look how big the crowds are. Look how many followers he's gotten on TikTok, which, dude, you could bot TikTok, easy as pie. Look at all these signs that we're winning, which are all being carefully crafted to, when Democrats show up in November to kick this guy to the curb, there's going to be an onslaught of, there's no way, an onslaught of, it was rigged. They're just sort of setting it up in advance with this huge PR campaign of how far ahead they are.
And the Republican Party is really, they've stuck. They stick together in this. They see it's weaponization of the Justice Department, of the FBI. And, you know, that's all coming out of Washington.
He had to throw the FBI in there because of those pesky classified documents.
You may think it's brag. Take a look at who opened the case. I'm not allowed to talk about it because I have a gag order. I'm probably, I guess, the first presidential nominee and the leading crooked Joe by a lot, that's not allowed to talk. Maybe they're doing me a big favor. Who knows? But I'm not allowed to talk. I'm gagged. Nobody's ever heard of it.
Dude,
guys would say to me, you know, that aren't.
He's far from gagged, but
they know about freedom and the Constitution.
I mean,
they say they can't gag you.
He's got a gag order, but he never shuts the F up, bro.
In this country, they do have it in other countries, in South American countries. You know a little bit about it, right?
Well, that actually leads me to my question. I think for a lot of Americans, what's happened to you feels foreign. Like, this has never happened here before.
I mean, there are parallels to this when she says this has never happened here before. Granted, the actual criminal trial of an ex-president has never happened. But we definitely have a precedent with Richard Nixon. And it would have happened in the 70s if Nixon had not resigned. But Nixon knew well enough to resign and just move on. But Trump is going for broke, man. I don't even think it's about the politics at this point anymore. I think Trump realizes he has a cult of people who will give him money. They will buy the Bibles. They will buy the sneakers. They will buy the Birch gold coins or whatever. The Trump in a superhero outfit NFT. He's got a troupe, you know, an entire circus of people he can just grift off of. Like, he's never going to stop. He's not going to stop until the money dries up.
Hispanic Americans, people coming from Latin America, this feels very familiar.
Yeah.
And in those countries, people are imprisoned. You know, instead of going to the ballot box and fighting there, they're on house arrest. They're told.
Oh, we're going to fight at the ballot box, too. Don't you worry about that.
And by the way, I think a lot of Hispanic Americans, I hear from them, they're scared about what they see. What's your
they're probably a little scared about that deportation force, too. But
about what happened to you and about how scared they are that our country is turning into the that they left behind. Corrupt
dude,
they left behind.
And they are scared, and they're great people, very entrepreneurial, great energy. And as you know, I'm doing very well with them. I mean, beyond anybody, I don't think anybody's ever had
Do you
polling.
think this is why a little bit?
I think a little bit. I think we just,
Dude.
even before people understood what was
my
going
God.
on, I was doing well with the, you call them Hispanics. You know, there's about 15 different names.
know.
Latin
Just don't say
Americans,
Latinx.
South Americans. They say Latin Americans, South Americans, Hispanics. But we
Come
all know
on,
what we're
Trumpy.
talking about.
Let's
And
go.
they've always,
Get on
liked me, and
task.
I've always liked them. You know, I've done well from the beginning. In 2016, I won the entire border.
dude, it's kind of interesting that he's got a two-pronged sort of personality. Prong one is the Hispanics all love him. And prong two is we're going to sick the local police on everybody who looks like they could be illegal. And we're going to put people in concentration camps. It's a little bit of both sides of the fence right there, Trumpy.
And they're all like 85%. And it's been great from the beginning. And now I'm leading. I think I'm leading over this guy that can't put two sentences together, that's destroying our country. Look, he's the worst president in the history of this country.
Oh, my God.
He's a danger to the country. And, you know,
He's a danger.
Donald Trump
Horrible.
is a threat to democracy. It's just words. He doesn't even know what it means. But it's like their slogan, I'm a threat to democracy. I'm the opposite. They're the threat to democracy.
Oh, are we?
And now I hear they're
Care to
starting
explain that, Donnie?
Go over the lines with Russia, and Russia's getting a little bit nasty. Like, you know, maybe we'll start using nuclear weapons.
Dude,
These people,
what is he talking? Like, maybe we'll start using nuclear weapons. Dude, that's not happening, bro. Jesus. It's a little befuddling because it would appear that Donald Trump is not capable of talking without engaging in some sort of vast dissemination of absolute fairy tales.
really not a threat to democracy, a threat to the country, just to this country surviving. Beyond democracy, beyond anything. So now
Lordy.
they tell Ukraine it's okay to start going and popping off Russia. You know, how did we get in this mess? if I were president, there would have been no Ukraine. Not one Ukrainian would have been killed.
I mean, maybe he didn't lie there. If he was president, there would have been no Ukraine, right? Because he would have been like, Putin, oh, you want it? Yeah, sure, go ahead. Go ahead, boss. Can we get a couple bill? Like me and Kushner, maybe 2 billion more? Get some condos on the beach?
Not one city would be knocked down. I mean, the place is a disaster right now. Most of the cities are
Oh,
knocked
Lord.
down. I guess they're
Lordy.
saving Kiev for, they probably want to use it a little bit. So they're waiting. But not one, they're just lobbing missiles in. Not much they can do about it.
Dude.
But now they want to get aggressive and they want to fight back. And, it's okay. But, boy, that's a big statement. And the N-word is being mentioned.
Right.
And the N-word is the nuclear word. And
Dude, the N-word. Dude, you see that? Dude, nobody calls nuclear the N-word. You know what I'm saying? But he throws these little things in there. He deposited that being able to mention the N-word in this little interview, but the N-word is the nuclear word. Nobody's ever called the word nuclear the N-word, ever. It's just more of his little weird 1950s dog whistling.
We're probably in real numbers, 250 billion, and Europe's in for about 70. And I say, why isn't Europe, why aren't the European nations, which would be NATO, which I kept together, which I was able to keep together by getting them to pay. They weren't paying, we were paying for the whole thing practically. There
Dude,
were
he
8
wants to
nations that were paying
disband
up,
NATO,
including
by
us.
the way.
And,
Oh, Lordy.
That's where they have the money now because of what I did. Because Obama didn't do anything. He'd go and make a speech.
Dude,
We were attacked
I
by
can't
Russia.
even remember what the
That means you're not
question
gonna
was.
pay.
He is not
You've had
fit
a
for
different
office.
level of- And you would have had a great military. You would have had a lot of things right now that you don't have. And you wouldn't have an electric car mandate, which is one of the great jokes of all time. And I think everybody should have an electric car if they want one, but they should be able to buy other forms of propulsion.
Propulsion? Dude, we're 11 minutes in, and he's literally just saying the same crap that he always says. It's that same hamster wheel that he does
I want to return to the verdict, and I want to
on
explore something you said several times
every
already in the
Trump
conversation. You
rally.
referenced these people. I'm sure you've seen the video of Joe
Yes.
Biden when he was asked about the verdict, and he gave sort of a smirk to the camera.
Terrible. Remember, Bragg
Terrible.
didn't want to do the case. He came out. He said, there's no case, and how can you have a witness like so-and-so? I'm not allowed to mention the name. Can you believe this? This guy's allowed to have shows, television shows. I'm not allowed to mention the name. It's so unfair. But regardless.
So
you know,
unfair.
You have to really play the hand that you're dealt. And then you had a jury that was, from a certain persuasion. Would have been hard to do no matter what. But I did absolutely nothing wrong. I mean, absolutely. Think of it.
Dude, he
I
is.
hate what they say, a bookkeeping, this and that. It's not. It's called, think of it, expense. I use the word expense. Legal expense. I pay a lawyer. He wasn't a fixer. He was a lawyer at the time.
He wasn't a fixer. He paid a lawyer, like all lawyers, by the way, just for the record, guys, in case you were wondering, all lawyers take out home equity lines of credit on their own houses, and then they open up shell companies in order to make payments to keep people silent. And then, when all is said and done, after the election is won, they go and they get their money back from their boss. That's just really common, in the attorney-client relationship, right? You know what I mean? I got a lawyer when I was doing a custody agreement with my son's mom. And so naturally, my lawyer was opening up shell companies and paying people off in order for me to get a more favorable judgment. No, that doesn't happen. Jesus, yes, it is filthy.
And he's a lawyer. It's called legal expense. A bookkeeper, without ever speaking to me, because she did the right thing, who's been with me for years.
He's
marks
a
it down as
lawyer.
legal expense. In other
He's
words,
legal. I'll call it a
expense.
legal expense.
It's marked down as a legal expense. And they say that's a fraud. What am I going to call it? Did you ever see a ledger? Do you ever study accounting? The line's like about an inch long and an eighth of an inch wide. You can't write the story.
Dude, do you see that? Oh my God, his reasoning is the ledger. You see the ledger? It's only got an inch space. I can't write in there that we've created a shell company and I'm paying off my lawyer's home equity line of credit that he took out to pay this porn star to be silent for the election. Like, I can't fit it in there, right? I can't fit it in there. So I have to just put the legal expense, right? I can't fit it in there. I gotta just there's only an inch.
We got clearance from the FEC, Federal Election Commission. Clearance. They're suing, saying we violated a thing, but they gave us clearance. But
clearance for what, Donnie?
It was like a weird charge. You'd have a little of this, a little of that, do a little of this, throw a little, mix it up.
Given all of that, we're watching this trial. Everyone's watching it on TV.
Yeah.
You're living it. You're in the middle of it. And regardless of all of that, still, when that verdict is being read, what's going through your head?
Well, it was weird because we go in and the judge, it looked like it was a hung jury for a while. And it's sort of the
It looked like it was a hung jury for a while. The jury deliberated for 7 hours. This was one of the fastest jury verdicts. In a major case, right? This is one of the fastest jury verdicts I have ever seen in my life. For a case this big, I mean, I guess I'm not surprised because his defense, they called 2 witnesses.
Because in the area, it's almost impossible. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen people that, no matter how the three of you, we're all sort of similar in terms of would like to see strong borders and low taxes and strong military and lots of good things, right? All common sense. I call it the party of common sense, and we're people of common sense. Who wants to have an open border?
The party of common sense, right? Let's just, hold on. I want to put that into the Republicans are the party of common sense. Let's see. No, that's not really computing, bro. The party of common sense. Oh, they want to deport 11 million people. Yeah, that's not common sense. Their leading candidate is a convicted felon. Right? Homie's still got 69 charges waiting for him, bro.
Millions and millions.
Dude, what is he? All he can talk about.
From Africa, from.
By the way, I believe Biden is going to be doing an executive order on the border tomorrow, since Donald Trump killed the bipartisan border bill. I believe there is going to be some action taken on the border. But now he's coming in with the whole Africa. Dude, we got to hear. Let's see if he mentions it. I mean, we're not getting the accordion hands because the camera's kind of up high. But let's see if he goes into the 73% reduction in crime in Venezuela, right? And that they're sending all their criminals here.
From the Middle East, from Europe, from all over the world they're coming in. And they're coming in from jails and they're coming in from mental institutions, insane asylums.
Part of it.
Some of the sickest people.
Oh.
Mentally ill
Trumpy.
people are being dumped into our country. We're going to be paying for this for a long time. Now, I'm going to do the big deportation, the biggest ever.
Oh, yeah.
Eisenhower did the biggest.
The biggest ever.
It's a very tough thing. What they've done to our country.
The greatest deportation you've ever seen.
And so many other things. I mean, like, you go into New York, the kids can't have Little League games anymore.
Oh.
It sounds so trivial.
Dude, he's on the Little League again. He's back to that Little League. Little League has not been canceled.
Right?
Why?
Because the migrants are living on the fields. Unless you want to play around the tents, it's a little bit tough. It's a little bit tough to play. But no, I mean, but when you think of, common sense, who really thinks that men should be playing in women's sports?
Dude, men aren't playing in women's sports.
Something I mention all the time gets one of the biggest applause.
Dude, once again, Trumpy's just essentially running through his greatest hits. We got everybody flooding in. He hasn't yet said military age men. I'm sure he will. I'm sure he'll get to that. I'm not sure if he's going to hit the 73%, but he's all about we're being taken over by immigrants. He can't touch on transgender rights or the existence of trans people. He's got to equate that with transgender rights equals men playing women's sports, which nobody wants that.
Where does the mind come from? Right. A man playing, look at the weightlifting records.
There he goes. Are we going to get the thing?
Unthinkable against women that are the top.
Oh, he did it!
The strongest.
I was going to say, dude, There's no way. I didn't think he was going to do the motion and the sounds because of the venue. You know, this is much more serious than him speaking to a bunch of rubes in a park somewhere. But he actually did it.
It's you know, something I mention all the time, gets one of the biggest applause, but the mind come from a man playing. Look at the weightlifting records. I mean, these weightlifting guys.
Here he comes.
Anything before, they're breaking the records by numbers that are unthinkable against women that are the top women. They're the strongest. They're getting blown away.
Women.
Who would think?
Dude.
The swimming records, the track records. It's crazy. It's just crazy. I actually, when I first heard about it, you know, what was it, like 6, 7, 8 years ago, right? When I first heard about it, I actually thought they were kidding. I thought, you know, this was just a funny joke. But they're actually serious about it. They're actually committed to it. And who would want that? Who would want open borders?
Dude, he's back to the border, bro. He is a broken record. Border. He cannot talk for 1 minute without going back to the border.
Who would not want to have taxes be low and expenses be reasonable and good schools and all of the things? I mean,
good schools. This MFer wants to, he said it. He's been saying it, how he's going to completely close down the Department of Education and good schools. Yeah, that'll work wonders.
who would want to have our Army tanks? We make the greatest Army tanks in the world. I saved that
Greatest
factory
Army tanks.
in Ohio. I saved it.
He saved the Army tank
saved it in
factory,
Ohio.
folks.
They were going to close it. I saved it as actually the president-elect. I heard about, a friend of mine called up. He said, they're going to close down our Army tank factory, and we're not going to be able to make Army tanks. I said, that doesn't sound good.
The
I went and
Army
visited.
tank
It was
factory.
unbelievable. The people there were
Dude,
unbelievable.
he speaks like
They wanna
he's
make
an
them now
8th
in
grader.
electric.
Right.
But they don't go far, and they have to pull a wagon because the wagon, you know, the battery is so big that the Army tanks will have a wagon like a child. It's pulling a wagon. It's a heavy wagon, too, very heavy. The whole
Dude.
thing is crazy.
What is he talking about?
You've been through a lot.
Yeah.
In your presidency, what they've done to you.
So let's revisit there. What was the question? How did we get, like, again, I can't even remember the question he got asked. We ended up at Army tanks pulling a wagon. But does anyone remember what the question was? Dude, it's like mind-numbing how this process goes with him.
You've got the verdict that just came through. A lot of Democrats have expressed concern that if you're elected, you're going to want revenge. And some of your supporters have said, well, you know, mutually, you know, we're just talking about the weaponization of the justice system
Right,
against
sure.
political opponents. Some of your supporters have said, well, the only way to stop this is mutually assured destruction, right? If you do it to us, we're going to do it to you. You've said no.
Dude, are they at his golf course? Did you see that? A golf cart just drove by. Is he at his golf course? Is that where this interview is? All Trump has been doing is golfing every day. That's his campaign. He does a walkthrough at UFC, gets clapped by some rubes, and then he's been golfing every day. But I just saw a golf cart drive by. I think he was golfing, and they just showed up at his golf course.
You know, the interesting, somebody brought it up today. It was very interesting on your network. Somebody brought it up, and they said, you know, the funny thing is that
Come on, Donnie.
they're deniers because they're now saying that Trump changed the election.
But that's a great point because
But we know he did. We know he did. He literally just got convicted for it. We absolutely know he did. He altered the course of the 2016 election. And then not only did he try to alter the course in 2016 and may have gotten away with it, but after he lost in 2020, him and a bunch of rubes led by the Proud Boys and so on, they tried to alter the course of the 2020 election. And now we can't even have an election or a trial or anything without these insane claims of them being rigged. If Trump wins or it goes his way, it's fair. And if Trump loses or it doesn't go his way, it's rigged.
You know, at the end of my term, we had a 92% approval rating. It was at 40 when we took it over. Pete,
At the end of his term, a 92% approval rating. Huh. I'll remember that, bro.
you know, my revenge will be success. And I mean that. But it's awfully hard when you see what they've done. These people are so evil. And at the same time, the country can come together. You know, I'm saying this.
See, I have a fundamental problem with this recent right-wing tack of calling the Democrats, the people across the aisle, evil. The whole good versus evil, anything that is framed in a good and evil context is completely fraudulent. There's no such thing. It's like this oversimplification where you attach the term evil and then it justifies whatever means you need to do to fight back. You're fighting the devil, Satan. But life is not like that. They've been doing this in many ways. Pride flags are evil to them. Migrants are evil to them until they are working in the Tyson chicken factory or on the farms. But now it's like Democrats are evil. The jurors are evil. The court system that's holding him accountable for his crimes, evil. It really is bothersome, especially considering how much of this man's crowd are mentally unstable people who carry guns.
Evil. And at the same time, the country can come together. You know, I'm saying this, but the country can come together. You know,
the country will never come together behind this man.
We're the most successful country we've ever had.
What is he talking about?
Hispanic, black, Asian, women, men without a diploma, men with MIT, Wharton, and Harvard diplomas, all of them.
What is he talking about? Women? Dude, women were not loving life when he was president. They're certainly not loving life now that a clump of cells in their womb has more rights than they do.
More money, doing better than they've ever done before. And radical left people, I would call them radical left, were coming up to me and say,
now it comes to the
it was coming together.
radical left.
COVID, our gift from China, came out of Wuhan, like I said, right? I remember I told you that a long time ago. I never changed.
Dude,
It was the Wuhan lab. They made a mistake. And by the way, it was incompetence. I walked out to have lunch with his girlfriend, and the scene was set. It was a disaster.
What is he talking about, bro?
For that. Always got credit for a good economy, for taking out Soleimani, taking out al-Baghdadi. You know, I defeated ISIS. ISIS was going to take 5 years.
He defeated
at least,
ISIS?
Mattis said, at least 5 years. I got it done in like 3 months. I defeated ISIS. Our military is so great. The real generals, the guys that know how to fight.
But wait, I thought there were no wars. There were no wars under his watch. But now he's telling us how he defeated ISIS with our powerful military.
One of the things that I hated to see, and I think one of the lowest points in the history of our country was Afghanistan, the way that happened. And you know,
Again, does anyone remember the question? I can't even remember the question, bro. I'm trying so hard. But once he starts running, he just runs and hits all the same points. Every time he speaks, it's like the same like stream of consciousness, run-on sentence of how perfect he is and how he's the only solution that can save the whole world. The whole world is going to be evil and non-existent without him.
I want to follow up on what Rachel asked you, though, because I hear you struggling with it. I hear you say it's a tough question, a bit unsure. You famously said regarding Hillary Clinton, lock her up. You declined to do that as president. But now,
and purposely, because after I won, you know, it's different when you win. I see it tonight. I'm going to UFC with Dana White.
UFC.
And I see fighters, they come in with...
Dana White is a woman slapper, by the way, for the record.
You wouldn't believe it. It's amazing. It's a little metaphor in life, right? The hatred, they hate each. Then after the fight, somebody wins, somebody loses. Sometimes they get knocked out. Sometimes it's... But they hug and they kiss each other. It's like crazy.
They kiss.
I beat her. It's easier when you win. And they all said, lock her up. And I felt, and I could have done it, but I felt it would have been a terrible
He
thing.
could have done it. No, he couldn't have. You need evidence.
So I may feel differently about it. I can't tell you. I'm not sure I can answer the question. Hillary Clinton, I didn't say lock her up, but the people would all say lock her up, lock her up. Okay.
He did say lock her up. Okay, he did say lock her up. There's another lie. The reason why he didn't lock her up is because there's no evidence. And it's not for lack of trying. There were countless investigations of Hillary Clinton. Countless. There have been countless investigations of Joe Biden. They finally gave up, I think, on Biden because even the Republicans on the committee were like, dude, there's no evidence. Dude, homie is on one.
And I said pretty openly, I say, all right, come on, just relax. Let's go. We got to make our country great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Lock up the wife of a president of the United
But they
States.
want to lock you up over $130,000 of an accounting thing, and she
Perfectly,
actually.
and a perfectly stated accounting thing.
A perfectly stated accounting thing. No, we want to lock him up for committing fraud to influence the election. We want to lock him up for committing insurrection and trying to overturn the 2020 election. That's another case. We want to lock him up for trying to coordinate fake electors and trying to get the vice president to refuse to certify the election, for calling the Georgia Secretary of State, trying to get him to find him some votes so he could win. We want to lock him up for when the FBI discovered he had a bunch of classified documents for him hiding them and not wanting to give them back. Dude, that's why we want to lock him up. It's not about 130 grand. Nobody cares that he Stormy Daniels. Nobody cares that he banged a porn star and paid her off. We do, however, care that he did that right after the Access Hollywood tape, and he did it secretly so he could win the election. That's what we care about. And you're right. I think Mulaney is pretty much done with this fool.
You look at all these people, millions of people coming into this country. I really
Border.
think, other than nuclear weapons,
Nuclear.
which I think are the single biggest threat, not global warming.
Oh, global
say
warming.
that-
Now he is going to sidle into a complete rejection of climate science. And what is he going to tell us? That the rising sea levels mean people are just going to start having pools in their front yards? Right? Is that where he's going with it? Trumpy.
You know, we
Oh
know
my
the
God.
storms, and so I think it's going to be very good. But
There we
the
go.
country is really going bad. The seas will rise over the next 400 years, 1/8 of an inch, which means basically you have a little more beachfront property, okay?
Oh my
Think of
God.
it. The seas are going to rise. Who knows?
The seas are going to rise. We're going to have more beachfront property. Oh, Lord. Dude, it just makes my nuts hurt listening to this. It's like somebody's following me around with a tiny hammer, just tapping on my nuts repeatedly.
In the meantime, you get these maniacs with nuclear weapons that can do damage, which I won't even talk to you about, but I know the damage. It's the greatest. There has never been any.
Dude, oh my. Dude, I can't tell you about the nuclear damage, but I can't talk to you about it. All right.
Which means basically you have a little more
Holy
beachfront
shnikes.
property, okay? Think of it.
They're
The seas are gonna
laughing.
rise.
They're
Who
laughing
knows?
at the beachfront property.
This is the big threat.
crack.
I watched Biden the other night. It's the greatest.
It's demented.
Existential. He loves that word because it's a big word, and he thinks he knows. He doesn't even know what the hell the word means. He goes, it's the greatest existential threat to our country, global warming.
It is.
In the meantime, you get
Without a
these
doubt.
maniacs with nuclear weapons that can do damage, which I won't even talk to you about, but I know the damage. It's the greatest. There has never been anything like it. The power of weaponry today. It will be
Thank you,
obliteration.
Donnie.
And that's your real threat. But in
I thought
terms
the
of
threat was the enemy within.
The people that are coming in, that are being allowed to come in.
And we're going to move on to some other topics too, but just moving forward.
Yeah, he's like, we can move on to some other topics too, because somehow, Donnie, any question we ask you, we get the same answer. What did you have for lunch today? He's like, 1 million people are crossing the border, and nuclear is bad, and I can't tell you how bad it is, and climate means the pool's going to be in the front yard, and they're horrible, evil people. Donnie, what time do you go to bed? Well, there's nothing but criminals climbing over the border, and I'm hungry, and nuclear bombs are bad, and the weightlifter, right? He's like, I'm going to ask you another question, even though I know we're going to get the exact same answer. Bro, dude, how do they do it with a straight face, man? I don't understand how these people do this. I gotta wonder, how much editing did they do? Because we know they're editing this. That's why there's all those photographs. Every time they cut to a photo of Trump, it's to cover an edit.
The radical left, and I watch
The radical left,
the right.
the radical right.
Everyone's always talking about the right. You know, this side, the right, the right. The right's not the problem. When you look at Portland, when you look at what...
Dude, I live in Portland. Here he goes. He's talking about Portland. The right is the problem. As far as extremism goes, Oath Keepers, Patriot Front, Proud Boys, the neo-Nazi groups, those are all right-wing. Most of the mass shooters are right wing. Even in the George Floyd protests that they talk about, the police station that burned down in Minneapolis was burned down by a right winger, a right wing extremist. The guy went to prison for it. Like, what is he talking about? Now he's going to talk about Portland? Like, come on, bro.
In Minneapolis. If I didn't call out the National Guard, which I wasn't even supposed to because the governor's...
What is he talking about? Nobody wanted his National Guard.
Right there. Minneapolis would be wiped off. Remember this?
We wouldn't have Minneapolis if it wasn't for him, bro. That's bold, huh? That's bold. If it wasn't for Donnie, we wouldn't even have Minneapolis. Would have been gone. Nuclear. They would have nucleared Minneapolis.
Would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these. Yeah. Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, he paused there. That's what you're going to see if he declassifies the Epstein list. Donald Trump, bro. Oh, nice pause.
No, you don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others. Certainly about the way he died. It would be interesting to find out what happened there.
Oh, do you see that?
Situation.
He's backing away from the Epstein. He's backing away from the Epstein. Okay, the guy who promised to release his tax forms, and the guy who promised Mexico was going to pay for a wall, and the guy who promised there'd be a really cool healthcare plan, and the guy who promised infrastructure week every week of his presidency and then never delivered. That guy is now going to promise a bunch of declassification.
And they're moving all of their bad people into our country. And Venezuela
Oh, here it is.
72%.
Ah!
Their crime is
dude,
72%.
He threw it in there, bro. He did. He got us to Venezuela. I'm proud of you, Donnie. I knew you couldn't go without throwing that one in there.
How can you...
Oh, here we go.
How can you implement deportations? And do you think the public will have...
Now, before he answers this, we got to discuss something here, because I want you to picture 11 million people is what he's promising he's going to deport. And right now he's talking about migrants, Trump is, being in hotels or being on Little League fields and all this BS. Okay? He's talking about how overwhelming it is with all these migrants. So now he's presuming that his deportation force is going to collect 11 million people. That's the entire city of, Los Angeles. And he's going to collect them and deport them. Now, if 300 of them fit on a plane, it's going to be 36,666 planes. That's a lot of planes. So if you have 10 planes a day, that's still 3,666 days, 10 years, okay? That's not counting collecting these people. So the question being is, how would this be possible? How much would it cost to collect 11 million people, house them and feed them and care for them while you're arranging a way to transport them? I mean, again, if they deported 1,000 a day, that's 30 years, bro. At 10,000 a day, it would take 3 years, but that's not counting like housing them, feeding them, moving them. We're talking trillions of dollars. Trillions. And where would that money come from? And I know he says something about local police, but let me ask you this. They've already declared that we're living in crime-ridden cities. So how are the police going to deport 1,000 people a day? They're going to find and deport 1,000 people a day. How are they going to be fighting crime? The whole thing is a fantasy. The entire thing of even deporting these people, it's a fantasy, not to mention the fact that every state economy in America needs migrant labor, okay? Undocumented workers, meatpacking plants, chicken processing, farming, fruit. They're essential workers in our economy. So this whole thing is ridiculous.
The appetite, the stomach for watching deportations on their television screen.
Well, the second part of that question is so great and so tough, because the radical left is going to start saying, "Oh, look, so you'll get rid of 10 really bad ones, and one, beautiful mother who they think is guilty of something, and maybe she is, maybe, and it'll become a story or a family that's
What is he
family and
talking
came in
about?
wrong, and they're going to show it. Then it's going to always be tough. It's not going to be easy. And we have to use a lot of good judgment. But the way you get rid of them is the local police. The local police know these people by their first name, their middle name, and their last name. The local police are great. They're just not allowed to do their job.
Dude, what is he talking about? The local police don't know who undocumented people are? What is he talking about, bro? He's insane. And how come no one's asking him, how are you going to pay for this? I want to see a budget, okay? I want to see a budgetary proposal for this 11 million deportations.
Pension. They're afraid of losing their wife or husband. They're going to lose their house. They're losing everything. And one of the things I'm doing is giving local police immunity from prosecution. They get prosecuted. When they do their job, they get like yourself.
Yeah, that's the last thing we need. Can you imagine if local police could not be prosecuted at all? Beat somebody up? Can't do. Murder them? Nope. Steal your. Nope. Completely disregard your civil rights. No, nothing. Are you kidding me? It's bad enough that they turn off body cams now because qualified immunity protects them and the taxpayers just pay a settlement. But can you imagine complete immunity? No way, bro.
Soldiers, when they do their job, when they watch department stores being raided by 500 people.
500 people.
Television set.
500 people. Department stores are now being raided by 500 people. That's never happened.
It's also really bad? The caravans. I think I came up with that name along.
Oh, my God.
Where you form 25, 30, 40,000 people. The level
The caravans. He's on the caravans again, guys.
Anger and craziness toward women. I mean, the caravans. The mothers put their daughters in those caravans.
What is he on,
cases,
bro?
The daughter's not coming back. Knowing
Homie.
for almost certainty that the daughter's going to be raped.
Yes.
Homie is on one, bro.
Large, bottles of birth control pills, the mothers, because they know they're going to be raped on the way up all the time.
It's unconscionable.
The whole
Dude.
thing is incredible. And Biden thinks he's
The
doing
grab him by the
favor.
guy is
And the only
concerned
reason we
about
have the caravans is because
rapery
Biden's
now, guys.
high-ended
Just
it
for
all.
the record.
So we ran
It's
into
painful.
if he went to the beach because somebody convinced him that he looks good in a bathing suit, And at 81 or 82, typically you don't look too great. And he didn't have the power to lift those chairs. Those chairs weigh about 6 ounces.
Dude.
They're meant for children and old people to carry. And
Now he's on to Biden at the beach. How he learned how to talk like this, I believe it's a steady diet of Diet Coke and Adderall. But now he's on to Biden being this weakling guy who can't lift beach chairs. I don't know how we got to Biden and the beach chair from the discussion about separating children. But it's really weird how he simultaneously paints Biden as this weakling guy who doesn't know what existential means. He says he's dumb, he's ignorant, he's incapable, he can't lift a beach chair. And simultaneously, though, he is masterminding this conspiracy that's got Trump getting convicted. Biden is this guy leading the secret cabal that is hampering Trump at every turn. The mastermind, the evil genius. And he's also an old man who can't string two sentences together. But homie, you do have to pick a lane, bro. Those two lanes are very different.
I call my son.
Yeah, dude.
I'm watching this.
I don't know how who believes this? When you think about it, look at this man. Who believes this? Seriously, who looks at this guy? It's astonishing. I'm looking at this image of this guy right here. Who looks at this guy and listens to him ramble for hours? He rambles for hours on nothing. How do you buy into that? I don't understand. I don't understand who buys into this. I get being energized by the hate. If you hate immigrants or if you hate women, you get energized by this guy who will be a degenerate about women or a degenerate about immigrants, right? I get that. But there's no way you listen to him talk and think he's qualified to be a leader. He's inept. He can't even talk right. He can't even talk for 5 minutes without coming around to talking about some fantasy he has about the border. I mean, he can probably only spell his last name because he's seen it on buildings. But this is wild. How do they see him as a leader? I just don't understand it.